Have you seen Chuck Norris lately? He's still kicking butt and staying active well into his 80s. What's even more shocking is he looks more jacked than ever and seems to have more energy than guys half his age. And it's all thanks to Morning Kick, a revolutionary new daily drink from Roundhouse Provisions that combines ultra-potent greens like spirulina and kale with probiotics, prebiotics, collagen, and even ashwagandha. Just mix with water, stir, and enjoy. Unlike other green drinks out there, this one tastes exactly like strawberry lemonade and has hundreds of 5-star reviews. Go to roundhouseprovisions.com/save44 for up to 44% off your regular priced order. Plus, every purchase is backed by a 90-day money-back guarantee. So if you want to experience smoother digestion, a boost of energy, and just an overall healthier body, then go to roundhouseprovisions.com/save44 today. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Results can vary.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
The 3 Down Greencast is brought to you by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company. Home delivery now available in Regina at sassbeerdelivery.ca. Welcome to the 3 Down Greencast. You are listening to the internet's only We Make John Answer Questions podcast.
That's fair.
Yes, that's right. We are debuting a brand new segment this week. It will return probably again at some point, but I'm not going to put any sort of timeline on when it may return, but it will probably be...
That's not our style.
No, it'll probably...
Points.
No, it'll be some kind of reoccurring segment and some sort of rotation that is completely unpredictable. Who knows? Maybe one day we may do an entire episode of it because nothing's going to happen for the next while once they get through sort of the bulk of free agency here. So
that's
it's
fair.
entirely possible that we may go down that road. Who knows?
Yeah.
We may not do it again for 2 months. I don't know.
We'll figure it out when shit happens. We'll be here. If nothing happens, we sure as hell won't.
Potentially. I mean, sometimes we're kind of bored and we kind of just want to get on the mic and talk and have like 4 people listen to it because nothing's going on, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We do that sometimes. We've basically been doing that for a year at this point.
Yeah. Almost 2, really. Like, you know, that's the thing with us. I'm glad we are both embrace the dumb guys. Because I don't know what the hell we would have done this past year.
We probably would have just gone on hiatus if we actually took this thing seriously.
Right. And that would have drove me crazy because it's always an excuse to get my kids to bed because Max knows when I'm podcasting, he needs to leave me alone in the basement and just stay in bed.
Sounds like you just need to tell him you're podcasting more than you are.
Huh. Parenting advice with Joel. We could make that a thing too.
Yeah, listen to the guy with no kids. Yeah.
Yeah, but the guy with 2 and a third on the way. Wow, I've never thought of that myself. That's, well, holy shit. That's good.
Regardless, yes. So I, earlier, before we decided to record this podcast, asked if anyone had any inquiries that we were going to record this evening, and then I would be the good friend that I am, make John answer those questions.
Of course, right.
You know, there's all kinds of mailbag episodes out there of podcasts where people just answer questions, or they answer a question episode, or do whatever that kind of thing will be. Our twist on it is I'm going to collect questions and then just make John answer them.
And because I do no research, it'll be really off the cuff because, again, I just don't do research.
To tease it, there is one question that I could have sworn he researched, but he didn't. This is stuff he knows. John actually knows something that makes him sound smart, which is perhaps the most mind-blowing part of this episode.
I love that, like, we opened up the call before we went on this. You're like, hey, do you actually know that thing about that stuff? And I'm like, yes, I do, actually.
If you go on Twitter and find his conversation with Jacques Cartier, it looks entirely like he just ripped this off Wikipedia. But no, apparently John actually knows kind of knows what he's talking about here.
As much as one person with no scientific background and a love of the movie Interstellar could probably know.
Absolutely. But we will talk CFL as well as, of course, free agency opened with a bit of a flurry, and then it's kind of tapered off basically since after about a few hours. And yeah, so we'll get into that, everything the Riders did, what they didn't do, and from then on. And then we're also going to have the conversation about the media world right now in this country. But of course, before we get to all that, as promised, we are going to play a little game.
Okay, I'm ready.
I am going to make John answer questions that were submitted to us by people on Twitter. I'm not going to call them listeners because I honestly don't know if they're actually listening to the podcast or not, if they ever listen. I think that's a fair assumption. Like, we know there's no one...
They interact with us, but we don't know if they listen.
Yes, that's entirely fair. Like, these are people we know on Twitter. I don't know if they actually listen or not. We'll see, I guess. So we're going to open up with this one, because it doesn't really involve you knowing anything.
Okay.
Comes from Ferlin.
Yes.
Can you say I can't even say it once. Sea shanty 10 times fast.
Sea shanty, 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 sea shanty. Was that 10?
I wasn't really counting. There was one in there that I don't think was a sea shanty.
That's a sea shanty. I was concentrating so friggin' hard to not screw that up. Like, I've been mentally preparing that since I saw it on Twitter 20 minutes ago. So, yeah, when I should have been seeing who was still left in free agency, nah. I was sitting in my bathroom going, sea shanty, sea shanty, sea shanty.
Oh, now, brown cow.
Yes.
Unique New York.
Unique New York. I think I almost pulled it off.
You did pretty good. You did it a lot better than I thought you were going to do, if we're going to be entirely honest here.
That's because I'm not drunk yet.
Yeah, yet.
Keyword being yet.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to kind of go back to back on these two because it makes sense, I believe. From Dave, also known as the guy who owns Indy the dog.
Okay.
Who doesn't give an F about anything.
That's fair.
He proposes a rule change that the highest level of curling that would see teams limited to any combination of a total of 3 timeouts and blank ends. Thoughts? ?
I absolutely love it. Realistically, you need your timeouts during the thinking time to obviously stop the time when you're starting to run out of it. And a lot of times curlers use blank ends to regain the clock. So basically, if both teams, to explain it to those who aren't curling fans, you have a certain amount of time to think your decisions throughout a game, right? So basically, a lot of times, especially in the middle ends, in the nationals and stuff like that, around the 6th, 7th, if time's running tight for both teams, they won't go out and say it, but somebody's throwing a rock in and everybody's just going peel to gain some time, right? So you have 2 things that are basically designed to save you time. Now, do you go the route of a blank end and perhaps leave yourself without any time to discuss a complicated situation in a later end when somebody's trying to steal on you? I think it's a good way to mitigate the blank ends without really punishing anybody or really changing the game, right? So I know myself, I would rather have the ability to have an extra timeout in those crunch time situations. I think to do that, though, you'd have to stretch out the timeout. You'd have to make it maybe a minute, which may seem long, but by the time the coach comes on down the stairs and does the walk of shame and you get the old official there,
well, I think... The curling timeouts are basically like the CFL 20-second clock. They don't start until it's whistled in, basically. Now to put an addendum to that rule that I love, by the way, I would go one step further and say you have 3 opportunities during the game to stop your thinking time for 2 full minutes. Now, whether that would be because you're having a discussion
Or they just pause the clock for 2 minutes, say you're running low on time in the ninth end. And it's a fairly open end. The end is going as it should. And say, okay, we're going to take a 2-minute pause to our timer. So except when you're, so basically just like the clock pauses while you're throwing, you get 2 minutes that the clock is just paused. You can discuss, you can make a shot, you can just lay the broom down and go. And I think that would mitigate teams using the blank ends to pick up time. Because basically you're saying, and you lose that if you have a blank end. Both teams. So I think that actually is sneaky the solution to the blank end problem.
It's a pretty good solution, yeah. I would agree. I mean, there's lots of different ways you can go. I mean, for a lot of reasons, I think the game should be shortened to 8 ends, which would do a lot for a lot of reasons.
If you watch the slams, you're absolutely right, Joel. Like, if you watch the slams that are 8, you don't...
They also don't care as much.
Exactly. But... In the 10-end games, you basically burn 2 ends anyways, right? You maybe see, like... The only time you really see a blank so much in the slams is when both teams are low on time, or when somebody just hasn't figured out the ice, one of those first 2 rocks goes in deep, right? So it's like an error leads to a blank.
Yeah, so there's obviously just a bunch of different solutions to this problem. That's not what this episode. Maybe at some point, maybe we should do the annual 8-End Nation episode down the road ahead of the Scotties and Briar. They'll be going out of the Calgary bubble, of course.
Right.
So that leads into our next question from friend of the show, Joe Pritchard.
Yes.
Got any Scotty/Briar predictions? Hashtag 8End Nation.
As I said, yes, of course I do. I think this is going to be a really different year with the bubble. You're going to have a lot of teams that haven't, like, you even have teams that haven't curled together, but because of the way it's going to be set up this year with all the extra teams, they do have some time to figure it out. Scotties, to me, the favorite has to be Team Canada. Carey Harrison, they're really one of the only elite teams that is really bringing everybody back, that's actually curled together for more than, a couple of weeks on their own. So I think that instantly makes them the favorite. I mean, you've even got changes to Jones. You've got some teams that are opting out, like there's no Krista McCarville. Team Saskatchewan's a senior team. Another sneaky one, though, I would say, is the Tracy Fleury team with Chelsea Carey there. Mm-hmm. That's a talented team, despite the fact that Tracy Fleury doesn't have a ton of experience, but basically they just went out and picked up, because, again, this is the joy of being the wild card team. You can do whatever the hell you want. And I guess technically Chelsea Carey has Manitoba birthright exemption, but I definitely think they're one to look out for. It's going to sound funny, but I think skip is the most interchangeable position in a curling team out of any of them. Like, I think it's easier to replace a skip than replace a third or replace somebody in the front end. So I would definitely say Team Canada is the favorite. Watch out for Chelsea Carey. Men's side, I got to go with my boys. I got to go with Team Mike McEwen. I have to. They're my friends. Colin Hodgson is a dear friend of mine and always will be. Speaking of friends of mine, Kirk Myers coming on to Team Saskatchewan. Now, here's another thing I like with Team Saskatchewan this year, talking about teams that have actually played together. They actually, believe it or not, largely live in the same province, so they can all work together. Right? Get the breaking news sounder, Joel. I love that breaking news sound. And especially too, like adding Kirk Myers to that team is not as much of a change as some of these other teams, because Kirk's curled with Muskowie, with Kidby before. Matty Dunstone is just gonna make shots. That's what he's gonna do. So really high hopes for Saskatchewan this year. But of course, I mean, you got some absolute studs. I mean,
it's a stacked field with the extra wildcard teams.
Oh, it's unbelievable how stacked this is. I mean, you got Botcher, who's actually made He was three finals,
and he's the Alberta representative over some other pretty big names. So,
yeah, he made it over Cooey, and I can tell you, I did play-by-play for these guys have warmed my hearts, because I did play-by-play this summer for a virtual curling spiel for Lupus, and I was commentating on Darren Molding's game, and we decided to start something we called Tarps Off for Lupus. So Darren Molding of Team Alberta, I went tarps off. The guy he was playing went tarps off. He went tarps off, and raised a bunch of money for Lupus. So
I'm sure you hit
what?
your goal pretty quick once your shirt came off.
I angled the camera in a way that actually, like, I was very high angled, and you could only really, like, I'm your typical guy that just kind of gets real fat and hairy after about the pectoral region.
Did you put some
And it was
Vaseline on the lens, like Homer?
What I did, instead of Homer Simpsoning it, I just made sure the shot cut off just below my pecs, and it was actually, like, at the end of curling season. So, like, right now I have pierogi man boobies. But because of sweeping, it's not terrible during curling season. So, yeah, I managed to totally deceive all our viewers to perhaps think that maybe I look good with a shirt off. Anybody that knows me can vouch that is a lie. So, tarps off for Lupus. I got to go Team Alberta. I finally patched the hole in my wall that Jason Gunlinson from Manitoba made. So, Gunner, the hole's fixed. I figure that's been cursing you as well. But yeah, it's going to be a ton. It's going to be a ton of fun, absolute ton of fun to watch. So, I think the whole thing's just going to be fun because these teams are basically going in so cold without so little competition. It's just going to be chaos, and it's going to be great. Well, and on the men's side, I think you have more cohesiveness.
Yeah.
You know, and as we get closer, I think you are going to have people maybe opt out, but it just seems like the women's side, because of family and career commitments, and like
more common sense,
or exactly, are just saying no, we don't want to. I'm with you on that. I could even if I got a phone call from one of my friends to say we need a fifth, come play in the Briar, I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I could not be away that long. I couldn't do it. So. So sorry, Team Manitoba, Team Northern Ontario, wildcard teams that I'm all eligible for.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Team Saskatchewan.
Yeah. So a couple more before we get on to the actual point of this episode.
All right.
Next one from Fake Gainer. Will you watch any of the hashtag FCFL? I had to look up what that was, which is the fan-controlled football league. And if not, can you lie and briefly discuss it for 30 seconds?
I will.
It sounds like a clusterfuck, but I'm interested in the presentation aspect. Fuke load of camera, lighting, etc. You can learn new things even from a dumpster fire. I'll hang up and listen. Drive safe.
I think I can learn new things even from a dumpster fire is what this is.
Isn't that like the last year?
It is. Like I am like as a broadcast nerd, I'm looking forward to seeing the extra camera angles and how that stuff always seems to find its way into, like...
Did you know that John Murphy is going to be on the broadcast crew?
Really?
Yeah, I saw him, like, his, like, NFL draft diamonds or whatever, at least on, like, an online draft, on, like, an online feed or something. He's going to be on the broadcast crew for that.
I've interviewed... You and I have both interviewed Murph.
I mean,
he should be on a broadcast crew.
Well, we know he doesn't... He just loves to talk all the time, so maybe it's a good spot for him.
That's fair, but there's not a lot of substance behind the talk. He's one of those guys that you'll do a 2-minute interview with him, and you'll be like, "Oh, okay, great, I got some content." You listen back to it in the studio, and you just go, "Shit, I have nothing." It's just talk.
Anyway, to answer the actual question, though.
To get to the actual question, it's football, so of course, at some point, if it's on my TV, I am going to check it out. I think the concept of fans calling plays and voting and all that, it's kitschy, it's gimmicky, it's dumb. I hate it. I sound like a cranky old man right now. Just like, coaches are there for a reason to call plays. Like, just let me watch some football. I do like what they're doing, as Fake Gainer says, some of the lighting, the cameras, some of the field level stuff. But you and I have already talked about that. That was a huge thing we loved about the XFL.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that gives that kind of access like that XFL, I want to see worked into broadcast. I have been thoroughly enjoying, like, it's always like that right after the Superb Owl.
Mm-hmm.
After the Superb Owl game, and you get like the NFL films mic'd up, I've been enjoying some of that almost as much as I enjoy drunk AF Tom Brady. He is my spirit animal.
No, you can handle your booze better than he can.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. But like I said to you, when we were talking about Tom Brady, as I said to you, if next year we actually win the Pizza Hut event at the Saskatoon Men's Bonspiel, I'm going to be Tom Brady like that, walking out of the Granite Curling Club. You are going to be holding me up, loading me into my Sienna minivan while Lacey goes, "Are you fucking kidding me? It's the event!"
Yeah, the excellent event. Thank you. Thank you.
I was taking a drink. You almost got a spit take through my nose with vodka.
We teased it off the top, and this is the question where John gets to make himself sound smart.
Mm-hmm.
Smarter than he did through the curling stuff, which is stuff he actually knows about, but this is smart stuff that he probably shouldn't know about, but kind of does. Now, he's not going to be launching any rockets into space anytime soon, but you can at least fake it.
Mm-hmm.
So, this comes from Jacques Cartier, formerly Fake Mark Cohen, on Twitter. Does general relativity or quantum mechanics apply to black holes?
My argument is both. Although technically neither can exist at the same time, because general relativity is basically saying that everything has a spot in time, while quantum mechanics is things can exist outside of time. If you actually read into quantum mechanics, if you go down to the quantum level, things just phase in and out of appearance, okay? General relativity is Einstein's theory of relativity that says the faster you are moving, the slower time goes, okay? It also says that gravity has an effect on time, which is essentially a big plot point in the movie Interstellar, one of my favorite movies of all time, right? So the thing is with black holes, there's varying theories on black holes. One of them being that black holes may connect to other universes. So basically, as you get closer to a black hole, everything just becomes utter chaos. You got particles everywhere. They're slowed down by the fact that gravity is moving. Gravity is so intense. Everything is moving to explain it best, Joel. If I was beside a black hole and you weren't, you would be looking at me and I'd be moving very slowly, but to me, time would be moving normally as I drink my beer. So the closer you get to a black hole or a gravitational well, the slower things go. And it's just, everything is just chaos. So I actually said to Jacques Cartier, I do believe that both could exist in the theory of a black hole, because, all in theory, black holes are touching other dimensions, quantum. That's the thing. Black holes could potentially be holes between dimensions, between universes, all out in space, while quantum mechanics is also saying that things can be happening in other dimensions, and this has all been proven by science. So I think black holes are both messing with relativity, which is the relative flow of time, and could also be messing with other dimensions, quantum states, things existing in two dimensions at once. So to Jacques Cartier's point, although technically impossible from our understanding of physics that both can exist at the same time, I believe in a black hole you could potentially see both exist.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm a low key.
You can see why I thought he Googled that, right? Everyone, right?
No, this is one of my passions is relativity and quantum mechanics, and thinking that we can all exist, and parts of quantum mechanics basically say that every decision a person makes splits off and creates a new reality. So just like you decided to ask me that question, there's another reality in which you just said, I should just ask him what beer he's drinking because I know he's going to go on for a while and I'm not going to understand any of it.
Yeah, that's entirely fair.
There's also another dimension.
I'm not saying I didn't understand it. I just wasn't really paying much attention.
Fair. There's also another, back into quantum mechanics, there's also another universe in which I actually watched football practice and we never became such good friends. I don't like that universe, but it's all saying that, had alternate reality John actually done his job rather than just bullshitting with Joel the whole time, there's another universe where the 3 Down Greencast doesn't exist, and I don't like that universe. There's also another universe where I stayed in broadcasting and probably got laid off by a bunch of cocksuckers named Bell. I think that is the first time quantum realities and the word cocksucker have ever gone together.
Probably. I can't imagine another scenario where that would happen.
Hashtag brand new sentence.
Just breaking down barriers here on the 3 Down Greencast, brought to you by the Pile of Bones Brewing Company.
I can't believe we're still going to be sponsored after that one. Should I tell Haji and Dunk that I apologize in advance, or just beg forgiveness?
They won't care. They know we're idiots. It's okay.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
We're like the black sheep of the podcasts on the website. I think they know that by now, and they're fine with it. They keep letting us do this, and they keep bringing me along with their plans for like world domination with this website. So I mean,
well, and they actually retweet us and stuff now. I'm like, huh? Are we no longer the stepchild?
I don't know. Maybe I think we are. They just have come to accept us for who we are. I don't know.
That's fair. That's fair.
So yes, we will get into CFL free agency in a minute here, and I was just inspired by the noise I just heard very faintly in the background there. Before we get into all that, as usual, John, what is in the glass this week?
In the glass, there's days where it was a hard day at work, and a guy just goes, I need an excuse to buy some beer, and I go, hey, I'm podcasting tonight. So walk into the Sobeys liquor store, and I found something on the shelf that isn't there necessarily all the time. But when it is, it's a little expensive, but you want to put it in your face hole. That is the Black Bridge Brewery. Okay, that should be the one Furlan tries to get me to say 10 times fast. Black Bridge Brewery. I can't do it. Uno IPA. If you like IPAs, you're going to love the Uno IPA. It is going to be near the top of your list. If you don't like the citrusy, hazy IPA, Uno IPA. Put it in your face. Mm-hmm. It is delightful. It is good.
It's basically a single version of their double IPA, hence the name.
And because it's a single version, it's not like a 7-8%. It is a 5.8, which does have some teeth and has that alcohol taste I like. But
it's not a one and done.
No, it's certainly not. And I have two more within grabbing range here for tonight for the end of the podcast when Angry John is most certainly to come out. So until then, I'm just going to smile, listen to what you're drinking, and enjoy my Blackbridge Brewery Uno IPA.
For me, I am dreaming of summer and spring as we sit here in minus 33 degree weather. Regina,
minus 40 this morning.
Yeah. Even though you hear arguments from people that wind chill is kind of a made-up thing, Regina basically on pace to shatter a record for days in a row or hours in a row at a wind chill below minus 40. So, woo, go Wes. Woo. At this point, I saw it earlier in like a weather record account on Twitter. It's like, well, it's number 2. We might as well go for number 1 at this point, and it was less than a day away. So it's not good. It's going to get there. Is basically the point of all that.
And with that, it's funny. I never thought that minus I'm off for the next 5 days here as we record this on a Thursday. Mm-hmm. I've made plans to take Max skating at my friend's outdoor rink in his backyard, mm-hmm. which is socially distanced okay when it's minus 15, because I'm like, minus 15, it's going to be balmy. Let's take him skating. Yep. You got a patio heater. We'll mask up. We'll distance. I'll bring some beers. Pitter patter.
Yep, it was like I saw from friend of the show, Mark Heisey of Rebellion Brewing. Put out his little meme of there was the old beach life photo shoot he did where it's like all snow around him, but he's on a beach towel and sandal shorts and a t-shirt. And it says it's warming up
to the imagination either with the shorts.
No. And it said warming up to minus 26 this weekend in Regina, and because it's going to be warm this weekend compared to what it's been a little bit. That's true. So yes, because I am dreaming of summer, I am drinking the Nokomis Craft Ales Golden Ale. Just one of those nice, easy summer beer drinking kind of days where it's just a beer that tastes like beer. And when you want a beer that tastes like beer, it's one of the ones you should go for.
Yes, I would say that, and the POB Scarth Street Blonde as well, to talk about our sponsors.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So we can keep those dollars and beers flowing.
Absolutely. Most importantly, the beers.
Yeah, the dollars don't matter. We just need the beers.
People who could afford some beers now, a number of players across the CFL signing in free agency this week. That was on Tuesday. The floodgates opened, and for a few hours, it got a little slow off the top, other than Justin Dunk breaking 800 stories at once. And
dunk bomb. It's just like dunk bomb, dunk bomb, dunk bomb, dunk bomb after dunk bomb. It was so good.
And Hodge in there too. So yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah, Hodge bombs. There were so many dunk bombs, it blew that terrible fedora right off of Hodge's head.
Mm-hmm. And the Riders proved us both wrong and were surprisingly busy on the first day. But They were busy, but I wouldn't say in a bad way. I don't think they went out of their way and did anything that you were like, huh. But for the most part, everyone they signed, I think, serves a purpose in this team, and it filled holes that now existed on this team heading into free agency. Right. So basically, I think when you're looking at the big picture and where the team is at, when you're going into a year when you're not really sure when and if the season is going to start, you don't really want too many sort of question marks among your starters. There isn't really going to be, you're not really expecting a long, expensive camp. You're not really expecting many, if any, preseason games, probably. So you don't really know. You're just going to probably have to jump into the fire week 1 and go at it. So you probably want a roster that's as close to set as you can possibly get for that week 1 game, rather than, say, for example, if the Riders, if this was a normal year where you weren't sure about where things were going, you could say, okay, Charleston Hughes is gone. We're going young on the D-line. We're going to try out these guys at defensive tackle and see if anything works out. And if nothing works out, then we'll, kind of see who's out there among veteran circles that hasn't been signed yet and bring them in. Instead, Jeremy O'Day looked at it, I think logically, and said, maybe we should try to bring Mika Johnson back because we don't know when the season's going to start and what it's going to look like when it does. So we should probably have a guy in that spot that knows what he's doing rather than breaking in some rookies. And he's still one of the best guys in the league at doing what he does there.
Yeah, and you said it best, Joel, is every hole the Riders seem to have lost through the offseason, the very long offseason. I love the Riders signing Evan Johnson on the O-line. There's your Dakota Shepley replacement right there. Yeah. That's actually a guy, I love it when there's only a handful of them left, but when I got to see a guy at the U Sports level, got to know him, he played for the Huskies, like just a dominant O-lineman back to his Husky days. So that, to me, I love the fact he went out and got him. Same thing you said, Mika Johnson. As soon as Charles, it was clear, and this is, again, the thing I love with Jeremy O'Day, and he does it every single offseason. He makes his decisions early and then moves on to a different plan. If Charleston said, yeah, I would have played for 130, no problem. We have Charleston Hughes there. We don't get Mika Johnson.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't happen. So the second that Jeremy O'Day, rather than ho-hum, what am I going to do up to the deadline, Jeremy O'Day says, okay, no problem. We're moving on. Plan B, great. You signed in Toronto. That's fantastic. Good for you. All the best. Hey, Mika Johnson, we got the cap space. Let's do this, right? It just was like O'Day moved quickly. He moved decisively. There was no last-minute negotiations. And I know, like Dunk said on the website, it came out, I believe it was either today or yesterday, talking about how Cam Judge isn't going to be with the Riders anymore.
Yeah, Haji wrote that, but yeah.
Sorry, we now have 2 insiders with 2 R's on insider. So, Haji, I'm sorry. I'm only used to having the one guy to give all the shout-outs to. So, with that being said, the fact that, O'Day just basically went and said, okay, here's the spot. This guy's not going to be here. Let's move on, right? So, even with, and I mean this is no disrespect to Solomon Elamimian. There's another name I should never try to say 10 times fast, but he's great. He's a legend, CFL Hall of Famer. That's all said and done. But Larry Dean is definitely a capable replacement.
More than capable, yeah.
So same thing. Like Saul's great, so is Dean. So I don't think you're going to see a big drop off. The only spot that concerns me, and again, you have to give Jeremy O'Day all the credit in the world. He knew Cam Judge wasn't coming back. So what does he do? He goes out and signs the Twins.
Yeah.
Both of whom I think have starting potential. They're not going to be Cam Judge.
No, they're definitely not.
But both of them, like, all of a sudden you've got somebody starting, somebody else backing up in that spot that you want to go at linebacker with a Canadian, and both are just demons on special teams as well. So I think
when you can sign a guy, you can sign a Canadian and his backup in the same swoop. Now, whether they're at the same level, it's a solid move. Now, that's not to say, like, losing Cameron Judge is still a huge blow to what this team is capable of. He was one of, if not their best defensive player last year, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Yes,
so
absolutely.
It is a big loss, but to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit, when there's always the will they or won't they sort of thing leading up to free agency every year. But really, these things get done so early in CFL circles, usually most contract extensions, if a guy's going to sign an extension, it's probably happened even months before they even announce it. Like, a lot of these get done early and they just kind of roll them out throughout the course of time to keep in the news. Strong communication strategy. And basically, if you get it to, say 2 weeks, a week before the opening or the opening of the now negotiation window, if you get to that point and a guy hasn't signed yet, or they haven't announced a signing yet with that team, he's at the very least going to test the market before re-signing. That's just the way it is. So at this point, Cameron Judge apparently has a workout with the Las Vegas Raiders, which good for him. I think both of us are a little surprised he's getting it given the last year. Not that he's not NFL quality. I think at the very least he can follow a Brian Peters type path and be a pretty solid special teamer for a few years down there.
Right.
And so maybe he sticks on there, and then the whole thing's a wash anyway because no one has him. Now, there's lots of rumblings that he may be going to Toronto should he not get this Las Vegas job, which we all hope he does get, for not because we don't want him in Toronto, but because he frankly deserves to be in the NFL.
Yeah, he is NFL caliber. He's NFL talent. I mean, the guy played at UCLA, and his girlfriend's from down south as well.
Yeah. So basically, Jeremy O'Day said, okay, you're testing the market. That's fine. That's cool. Hinoc Muamba's doing the same thing. He always does that, and I kind of respect him for it. And instead of just waiting around and humming and hawing and hoping that maybe Cameron Judge is going to have a turn of heart or whatever I don't know what caused. There's no one's wrong in this situation why Cameron Judge may or may not be back in Saskatchewan.
Right.
It could be a mutual thing. It could be a Cameron Judge thing. It could be whatever it could be. It doesn't matter. Instead of just waiting around, O'Day said, okay, I got to do the next best thing for my team now because I'm not going to be able to keep this guy. And that's when he went and got the Herdman Reeds.
Well, and the other thing, too, I think with this year, with teams may or may not just spend to the floor, and we don't know where the cap's going to be at, I think we can assume the Riders going to be close to the floor, just, kind of doing some math and seeing guys staying and taking pay cuts and maybe not signing for as much money as they normally would have. But I think, unlike past years where the Riders could have said to Cam Judge, okay, here's $300,000, come play with us. Get some more film, 1-year deal, whole bunch of money. You're no team, except apparently Toronto, that's John Murphying all of the John Murphyings. I think everybody else is going to have a couple tough decisions and go, okay, do we back up the dump truck full of cash to Cam Judge, or do we sign the Twins, maybe accept a downgrade? Because I would say out of free agency, that's the Canadian linebacker spot the Riders are going with. That is the only spot I look at what they did and go, okay, that is a step down.
But here's the other side of that coin now. Because they signed Canadian linebackers,
right?
There is flexibility within that there now. If some of these Americans they sign or some Americans they have on the roster at linebacker outperform the Twins,
right?
You do have Ilabuka. You do have other people in the safe in the secondary or at receiver, or maybe we'll see what they do in the draft. Like, you have other spots where you could flip Canadian instead and go all American at linebacker, because I would say right now the Riders have the potential, if they wanted to start 8 Canadians. Maybe 9 if you really wanted to push it, because Evan Johnson has played some tackle, so if you really wanted to, you could maybe flip him out to right tackle. Maybe Matlin Riley's ready to start, and all of a sudden you got 4 Canadian offensive linemen, and that makes a big change too, right?
Well, I mean, that makes a big change, and you look at when the Riders have been most dominant the past couple decades, they have either had that strong Canadian O-line or strong Canadian receiving corps with the old, Royal Canadian Air Force, right? It allows them to do it's roster flexibility, right? I mean, it's funny that I almost feel like I'm explaining this on a podcast to, but I guess we get lots of new CFL fans that are listening, that the fact that you don't have to be locked in with your Canadian positions is generally a sign of a very, very good CFL team.
Yeah.
Canadian depth.
We talked about, I think, last year with the last time they played, the depth was pretty good. And the last time they had depth anywhere near that level, and I don't even think in 2019 it wasn't quite at this level, but was in 2013 where they had at least 9, and I believe you really could have stretched it if you really wanted to, the 10 starting caliber Canadians on that team in 2013.
Yeah, exactly. And that 2013 team is an all-time team. I don't care what that team was being built 3 years before that team was a thing. They knew it was coming, opened up the pocketbooks, developed some guys around there, and went, okay, we're winning the Grey Cup at home at Taylor Field. So
and it's funny, this is interesting, and just to get off topic a little bit, but kind of not really, is friend of the show and I, CBC's Dan Plaster, were having a conversation the other day because he brought up a point that right now Ben Heenan is only 31 years old. If he doesn't retire, how big of a change does that make for this franchise? If his heart was still in football and not farming, which, I mean, again, this is not a knock on him for choosing that life. That's what he wanted to do, and that's great. And I'm glad he was able to make a decision that he wanted to do and, follow his passions in life rather than playing sports because it's a thing you should be doing or something because you're really good at it.
Right.
And yeah, he was in the NFL for a little bit, so maybe he doesn't come back. I don't know. But in theory, I think he probably comes back and he's a stalwart on this team. And then all of a sudden, like that just sets up and flips this franchise for so much longer if he doesn't retire.
One of the great what ifs, because, back to my space and quantum talk, there is a reality that Ben Heenan does not retire.
Mm-hmm. Now, it would have created some interesting cap scenarios for them because, Brendan Labatt, Ben Heenan, Dan Clark, that's 3 guys that, Ben Heenan at some point would have probably won top offensive lineman, at least been, nominated, and would have at least been an all-star a few times, just like Brendan Labatt is basically every year, and just like Dan Clark rightly earned last year.
And I can tell you, I have watched Ben Heenan crush beers, and Brendan Labatt crush beers. Great guys, always a sign of a great offensive lineman, a guy that can crush some food and beer. So, go into the Hall of Fame of beer crushing.
Mm-hmm.
To go totally off topic.
Absolutely. So yeah, so I think just overall, like, okay, maybe the Riders, they're not super strong. They're not Hamilton. You're not going to sit there and say, okay, this is a team that is guaranteed that you think is like the closest thing to a lock in making the playoffs. But I don't, in terms of making the Grey Cup, but I don't like the whole picture of the league. It's been so long since we've watched anyone play, it's impossible to say anything about basically anyone at this point. I think the only thing I could say about sort of what to expect right now, and I've told this to some other people and some other conversations they have when we're talking about the potential 2021 season is, and I know a lot of other people feel this way, so this is hardly a unique thought, is I think right now when you're talking about sort of where teams are at in the CFL, I think you have Hamilton a strong number 1.
Mm-hmm.
You have Ottawa a likely 9, and whatever happens in between is anyone's guess.
Little bias here. I would say I'd put Winnipeg at 1A. Only because the last time we saw football, the Bombers basically had this same lineup. They did a really good job of keeping everybody together.
But they don't have anyone behind Zach Collaros, really. They like Sean McGuire. Maybe he's the guy. Maybe he steps in and is fine. But we always know Collaros is one hit away, and that's what holds me back on Winnipeg.
That's true. But I think talent-wise, roster-wise, I think they're 1A. With that being, they fall to like 4, 5, 6 if Collaros goes down. But yeah, his injury history just reminded me of that. Even though they went out and got Mitchell, but
I'm not saying it's not impossible. Like I think especially in the West, you could make an argument for just about any team to win the division, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, I could see that happening. I don't know if I'd necessarily agree, but I think all 5 teams you could make some degree of an argument, and I'd be like, okay, yeah, I could see that happening. In the East, not quite so much. I think it's likely Hamilton and probably Montreal at this point. Maybe Toronto and then Ottawa.
But that's it. Like, yeah. And that's why. Oh God, I hope we have a 2021 season. For that point exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Especially with the schedule finally being unbalanced for once, and it's going to be fun to watch so many interdivisional games.
Yes.
And it likely eliminates the crossover, and you're going to have just a sort of a standard playoff setup, and it's just, I think that's going to make a big difference, especially to the perception of the East, where you're going to have at least 2 teams that are going to be over 500.
Yes. Well, and again, like we talked about this a couple of years ago. There was always like, Montreal, Ottawa, This year, and I always go back to 2011, when the best team in the league in 2011 was 10-8. I think 2021 could have serious 2011 vibes, where it's like, holy crap, like you're winning a division at like 11-7 because everybody else is just that damn good except Ottawa, and oh, poor Ottawa.
But I mean, it's hard to really say this in a context of the 2021 season, where we don't really have expectations for a lot of teams yet, where we don't really know what to think of them. But historically, and it's pretty much always proven to be true in CFL circles, is you can always expect one team that you think is going to be really good to be bad, and you can expect one team that's you think is going to be bad to be good. It happens pretty much every year. The problem this year is we only think we know one team that's going to be good and one team's going to be bad, and I don't feel like we're going to be wrong about them.
Well, no. And
maybe Ottawa can be better than we think, but it's a pretty low bar to cross at this point. So
we've got them on like a historically bad, like Ottawa Renegades level of bad. Meanwhile, it goes back to the point of like Zach Collaros going down. All of a sudden, Winnipeg is a meh team, right? Does Vernon Adams, regress after a year of being an Uber Eats driver? Like, it's just, there's so many unknowns. Do some of these guys, and we mentioned them, like Brendan Labatt, Dan Clark, like, imagine how good those guys, their bodies are going to feel.
Mm-hmm. And then that's true of guys across the league.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a resurgence in a lot of veteran guys that, a lot of these guys, when was the last time they had 2 full years for their body to just heal?
Probably never.
Right? I mean, they're still working out. They're still staying in game shape. They're still eating right. They're still, but there's like 12 to 18 games less physical strain on their body right now. Right. They're not getting like, and that's the number one thing you talk to football players. It's not any retired football player you talk to. It was never I tore a hamstring, I tore an ACL. Those guys rehab those every single day of the week. It's that beating, that beating on your hands, your knees,
especially back in the day when like you padded up like every practice.
Well, that's it, which is ridiculous in retrospect. But I got to know when I used to work with him, and I was still consider him a friend. Is Rhett McLean, who played for the Eskimos and played for the U of S Huskies, and I'll never forget, Rhett's biggest line to me was at 31 or 32, he retired because he's like, my hands still look like hands. and like, that's the thing. He was an offensive lineman, so they normally get, broken fingers and stuff they play through. Like, imagine these guys, like, imagine a Brendan Labatt and a Dan Clark, healthy, recovered, feeling strong. And I hope Zach Collaros is healed. Doesn't matter. Okay. Next year is year 1 of my 3-year grace period.
Exactly.
Where I'm not allowed to actually bitch how bad the Bombers are. Don't get me started on the Boston Red Sox. That's the whole other thing.
No, we're not going down that road in this podcast. Maybe in a few weeks when we have nothing to talk about, we'll discuss that and open some wounds for John Fraser.
Just have the bleep button ready.
Yeah. Speaking of the bleep button, I hate to have to do this. We generally don't like to crap all over media on this program. Well, except John and Saskatoon Media Group. But
he treated me like shit for a lot of years.
But it's been a couple of weeks in the Canadian media landscape, and you all know the stories by now. Bell slashed literally hundreds of jobs days after their bullshit mental health campaign as usual. It's something that comes every year, but this year seemed to be particularly painful, probably under the disguise of COVID, even though they took a bunch of money from the government and then upped their payment to shareholders and the whole shebang. And, you know, some of it you can kind of get at times, some of it you can't. And, you know, both of us are veterans of this industry. I've been through what a lot of these guys have been through. You know, at some point, if you stay in the industry long enough, it's going to come for you. There's no question about it. You cannot avoid that. At some point, you're either going to get fired, laid off, or some way or another, it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this stuff that happened in the last couple of weeks, you can kind of see it at times. Even though the optics, and there's a lot of reasons why so shouldn't have happened, at least at this point. Regardless. The problem is the parent company, one of the largest companies, not only in Canada, but in the world, quite frankly. Yep. On the heels of their mental health promotion, basically decided to fire these guys and gals by email, voicemail, text message. Nothing really, no heads up, no warning, no nothing. Just, and especially the one that really hit hard for me was this past week where out of nowhere, TSN radio in Vancouver, Winnipeg, and Hamilton were all just abruptly ended. And they were basically, from the stories, it sounds like they were given 30 minutes to pack their shit and leave.
Yep.
And
the signs were down in Winnipeg that afternoon.
Yeah. And you know, as former radio guys, you know, and I was told this in radio school even, and I don't think they ever anticipated it to this degree, what is going on in the industry right now, but you know, at some point you're probably going to let go, and there's always a chance that the format could flip on you when everyone's out the door. So yep. you live with that. You know that's going to happen at some point, or it very well could happen. You have an understanding of that when you get into this industry.
Yep.
You expect to be treated human out the door, and for me, that's really where this has just drawn the line for me. All the other stuff is bullshit to begin with. Because of the you just look at the financial records of Bell, and there's no reason for this in general. But regardless, they're a corporation; they can make their choices. But if you're going to make those choices, treat these people like human beings, especially when you pretend to give a crap about mental health.
Yes, and you're right about that, Joel. I was fortunate enough to I was never fired or laid off in my radio career, but I also twice went into the automotive industry when I saw the writing on the wall. One, the most recent being 4 years ago, when I remember saying to Lacey, okay, I need to get out because I see this coming. I see, you know, it's one thing, to me, it's one thing for your New Caps, now Stingrays, for your Rolcos that are at their core 100% radio companies. Mm-hmm. I get it. You're going to have to cut bodies when revenues go down. You don't have any other revenue streams. It's just basic math. You don't have $2 billion in the bank like Bell does. You didn't just take $120 million of taxpayer money and say, "Oh, we won't lay anybody off," and go ahead and lay people off. Well, you're pretending to care about mental health, and it's funny because, and I said this to you, and I'm glad that, you know, you're my friend and you understand this, that the night of the layoffs, you know, it was funny. You always thought in broadcasting, if I get to TSN, I'm safe.
Yeah.
You know, it was kind of like when I worked for CJWW. I was like, this is a heritage station. The odds of it flipping, changing, being bought out are slim. There was always still that I still once had to print off every article I wrote for our shitty frickin' webpage to prove to the GM and ownership that I was doing a job. That's a thing that happened. This is just radio for you. Like, you know that day is coming. So I think, and like I said to you, hearing about this, like, I drank way too much vodka and ate way too much shit that night because I was just, it was like that anxiety just comes back. Like, I'm in a very safe position at a very good company that has no, like, we're the number one Toyota store in Saskatchewan, and I'm safe unless I do something really stupid. But still, I'm sitting here in my basement hearing about these layoffs and, like, thinking to myself, like, it's just like that PTSD of, like, okay, who's next? What's next? Who's getting cut next? And to find out that, like, all these people found out by voicemail, by text from other people that had heard about it.
Social media, robocalls, yeah, the whole thing.
Like, fucking Marshall Ferguson was ready to do a CFL free agency show that afternoon.
Yeah.
He had no idea. He had plans. He had guys like Duncan Hodgie lined up to come on and talk about CFL free agency that day. Next thing you know, he doesn't have a job anymore. And I don't know how the hell he got on the sports cage with our good friend Derek Taylor. I don't know how he did that. I would be so shit-faced drunk. Like, never mind free agency. I would have been a zesty mess. But, like, and this is my thing. TSN and Bell basically have the exclusive rights to the CFL. You have now taken away in Hamilton. They don't have other sports radio. They've got, you get the Fan in Hamilton that will never talk about CFL because they're owned by Rogers.
Does TSN Toronto get into Hamilton? I assume so, eh?
Oh, they do, but do you really think the guys from Overdrive that are former hockey bros that are basically caricatures off of Letterkenny are going to ever talk about, oh, great, Austin Matthews took a shit today? That would be the lead story over anything the CFL has ever done on TSN radio. Meanwhile, you had Bello and Marsh. You had that whole crew there talking about the CFL, which the city of Hamilton gives a damn about.
Mm-hmm.
Right now in Winnipeg, if you want to phone up and say, I am so glad that the Bombers signed Bryant Mitchell, that's what I want to do right now. Instead, you have some piece of shit radio station that nobody's going to listen to called Funny 1290. Guess what? If I want to listen to stand-up comedy, I'm going to go to a podcast.
Or YouTube or television or
anything.
Yep.
Like this is the stupid thing. If you want, this is like they're just shooting themselves in the foot so badly. If you
it was Andrew Buchholz of Awful Announcing, formerly of Yahoo Sports. He used to write a lot about the CFL when he was with them.
Yep.
He had a good point of, okay, it costs six metaphorical dollars to run a sports talk radio station, but you get 10 units of measurement for listeners. It costs one metaphorical dollar to run a comedy station, but you get 2 listening units. So really the better payoff is still to pay more people to put out a product that people actually want to listen to, rather than the cheapest thing you can find and hope you get some advertisers to go along with it, which they probably will, because most of the stuff is packaged across all of the stations within that company and in the market anyway. Well, no, because it'll just be tied in with the other, you buy on other Bell Media products in Winnipeg, you will get included on Funny 1290.
But that's all it's going to be.
Yeah.
So you're not actually generating any revenue. You're getting you get some bonus spots on Funny 1290. It's your throw. I've done radio sales. That's like your old great. Okay, sponsor the morning show and we'll kick you some evening and weekend spots. That's what all Funny 1290 is going to be. And the stupid thing is watching all these media companies cry poor that, oh, everybody's in a Spotify and XM radio and streaming and Apple Music and we can't make a go of it. No shit, you're shooting yourselves in the foot. You have $2 billion in the bank. The interest alone on that $2 billion probably paid the salaries of everybody you just laid off at those 3 radio stations. You had the sports talk market in Winnipeg. There's no other options. Knuckles Irving comes on for 2 hours every night, and, you can talk about the Bombers, which is great. I love Knuckles, respect the hell out of the guy. You've got host broadcaster slurper syndrome in Vancouver, where everything the Canucks do, despite being a god-awful hockey team, I'm watching them right now, they're not very good. You still have host broadcaster slurper syndrome where the Canucks are still good. You're the host broadcaster. You didn't have an open forum. I already said the things about Hamilton. And yet all these companies are going to continue to let radio die, a business you and I are so passionate about. They're going to just let it die. Mm-hmm. Because they don't care to spend $6 metaphorical dollars for the 10 imaginary units, like Buchholz said. They'd rather spend the $1 for the 2 imaginary units that just give away your license. If you don't want it, give it away.
I mean that is one theory that I think Jacques Cartier floated around, was they did the dirty work now potentially to sell the licenses, which I guess is possible.
Yeah, so but here's the problem though too, is even if who's going to buy a radio license these days? Who?
I mean, the license still has, like, the thing is, it's still a profitable business, despite everything that's going on with it.
Despite the bullshit. It's bullshit, is what it is.
Despite the bullshit, it is still a profitable business. And from what I've, what I've led to myself to, what I've kind of learned and understand talking to some people, I mean, Bell was a telecom company first. Then they bought Chum, and they got into the media game. And they really only wanted the TV stations. They didn't really care for the radio stations, but it came as a package deal. And what happened was they suddenly realized that actually this radio thing is pretty profitable, and they've basically been squeezing every dollar they can out of it by quote unquote streamlining ever since.
Right. But
rather than doing it properly and like actually having great product that tons of people want to listen to. Because at the end of the day, the radio is still the easiest format to get in your car. It is still the cheapest form of entertainment you can find because all you have to do is buy a fucking $10 radio.
But here's your future. Here's your future right now, radio. I will tell you what the future is if you keep putting out a shitty product. And I mean this is no disrespect to the people behind radio.
We still love everyone that works in the industry.
I love everybody that works in the industry. There are some phenomenally talented people in Saskatoon, but there are decisions that they are not making. The fact that there are 6 commercial radio stations in Saskatoon, you hear Bon Jovi on 4 of them is garbage. Like, I don't fucking... If I hear... We play one of the radio stations in town. I have heard the same song 6 different times during my day because nobody gives a shit about scheduling music in this city. The jocks, talented, hardworking, love them, right? But again, when you keep cutting, your product gets worse and worse. Here's your future radio. If you want to get as bad as Saskatoon radio, here's a fun fact for you. Saskatoon has the 2nd highest renewal of XM radio subscriptions off your free trial in vehicles. 2nd highest in North America. You want to know what the highest is? It's a place in Colorado that they don't get any radio because of the mountains. So if you want to keep shooting yourself in the foot, you want to keep cutting back, you want to keep cutting down people, you want to stop putting out good content because you can just stream some guy's stand-up routine heavily censored on your radio and maybe make an extra buck or two, guess what? People are going to switch. People are going to switch. You're going to be like Saskatoon, where every damn person in the city has XM radio or Spotify, and nobody listens to the damn station. And that's a goddamn shame because the amount of talented people that are on the radio that are being disrespected by the people up top that praise the almighty dollar and don't understand that pay some people to make your content, and you'll get people listening.